Right. It's a very good question, and I think it's actually a very relevant question. I think that the biggest shift, and here obviously at different parts of the organization, different people need to have different mindset shifts, and they need to experience things differently. But I would answer your question from the perspective of an executive or a CEO, CFO, chief operating officer, anybody that has a C in front. I would say that the biggest mindset shift they need to go through is to understand the fact that they can't pick the winners with innovation. You can't just say, okay, look, there are 20 ideas in front of us, or 10 ideas, or 5 ideas, or even 2 ideas presented to us. Let's just think now really, really, really hard on which one are we going to select to develop. It doesn't work like that because innovation has, like in startups, right? It has so much uncertainty behind it that the only people that can judge if something works or doesn't are obviously the clients, and the team then observes if the clients like their products or they don't. So the biggest shift that they need to make is from trying to pick the winners to trying to allow as many ideas to happen. And by happen, I mean let a lot of ideas experiment, go in the market, run experiments, run tests, build prototypes, interview people, all that kind of testing that ultimately is going to tell you who are the winners and who are the losers. But if you lock yourself in day one and say, I like that idea more than I like the other one, or I think that idea will succeed more than the other one, it's all based on assumptions. And people obviously have a lot of assumptions about what will work and what wouldn't based on their experience. So it's not a sustainable process if you're on the long term, if you have to pick the winners.
So, as far as I understand, you always talk about managing innovation like this portfolio and spreading bets.
Indeed, indeed. It's basically, listen, they need probably to speak with you about how do you invest in startups, right? Because you're not investing. Look, I like this idea more than I like the other. You are actually looking for the evidence whenever you're making an investment, and not only that, but you are allowing part of your portfolio to fail. You accept the fact that not everything will succeed, not everything will return, but it's fine as long as at the end of the day your fund and your portfolio is obviously on a plus. They need to have the same approach. Instead of managing projects, they should probably manage portfolio.
So they will be balancing the moonshot and incremental innovations within their portfolio like venture capital funds.
Yeah, I would actually try to stay away from incremental innovation. I would encourage them to do more adjacent and transformational innovation. Because incremental, it's already kind of happening throughout the organization, right? People are evolving products, are evolving services from last year to this year and obviously to next year. But try to have this mindset whenever you are reaching beyond your core, when you're reaching beyond that incremental innovation, when you're reaching towards the transformational areas, the disruptive areas. That's when you starting to have this need of, hey, I need to manage my portfolio rather than managing individual projects.
It is an example of a company that is pioneering this next generation innovation that you describe, innovation accounting practices you find inspiring, by the way.
There's many companies out there that to some extent do a good job at using KPIs in order to manage their funnel. Uh, I can name some, but even if I do, I'm probably not going to make justice to the people that I'm not mentioning. Because again, I haven't seen the entire world and all the companies in the world. I'm a big fan of what's happening in Telefonica. I'm a big fan of what's happening in DuPont. I think ING is quite interesting as well. Again, these are just some names, some companies that I have encountered, I have spoken to, I've researched. But again, I'm sure there are many more out there that are doing maybe even a better job than the companies I mentioned.
Back to the basics. What are the main difference than these, as we know, traditional finance accounting, financial accounting, and innovation accounting? Should you describe for the ones that do not having the term understanding for the listeners?
Sure, sure. I think the main difference between financial accounting and innovation accounting. And by the way, when we wrote the book, we never intended for innovation accounting to replace financial accounting standards or replace financial accounting in general. Excuse me. um, when we wrote the book, we basically said, look, before a an idea becomes financially successful and you can manage it with financial accounting indicators, there's a big chunk of time where you don't have any metrics. Why? Because the nature of the business is very different from a mature business. This is why you need to have innovation accounting. So innovation accounting is not replacing financial accounting, but it's more complementing innovation. Sorry, it's accounting for the part where you won't be able to respond to those financial KPIs. Imagine that you're starting a product idea tomorrow in a large organization or in a startup. It's basically the same thing. Literally, for the first 6 months to a year, maybe 3 years, you won't be able to answer questions such as return on net assets, customer lifetime value, customer acquisition cost. These are all financial accounting indicators that literally you need to have a stable business to be able to answer. What innovation accounting comes in and says, look, there are other indicators that you can use in order to know if a venture is moving in the right direction, right? Like how much confidence do we have based on the experiments they're doing? What is their learning to experiment ratio? How far along are they in our product life cycle? How long they took to get there? There are so many other questions that you can ask somebody that's early stage to answer before they even report or start thinking about financial accounting. It's like athletes. Think about it this way. If you have kids and you're sending them to a running team, you are not going to measure them when they are 5 years old or 10 years old against the performance of Usain Bolt running the Olympics, because it's impossible for them to compete or even report on those numbers, right? Usain Bolt is running in below 10 seconds. I don't think a 10-year-old will run in below 10 seconds. So it doesn't make sense. They should compete within their own group and then start comparing a 10-year-old against a 10-year-old, but not the 10-year-old against Usain Bolt. And in some organizations, executives sometimes make this mistake. They take a 10-year-old and comparing it to the Usain Bolt, which is basically the core business. And this is why they are always disappointed. Look, you haven't hit your targets. Yeah, but I just started my idea 3 months ago or 6 months ago or a year ago. Of course, I haven't hit my target, but look, I've done all these other things that are proving to you that I'm on the right track and I am learning. I'm going to become a big business in the future, maybe bigger than their core business. Maybe I'm going to run faster than Usain Bolt.
What are some key principles or guidelines to follow when designing an innovation accounting framework for these companies?
It's a really good question. I think that in the book we presented some principles, and to be honest with you, I can't cite them from the top of my head, even though I wrote the book. Uh, I would say that probably the most important ones, and again, I'm using my real life experience of having worked with many organizations trying to implement this. I think the most important two principles would be, first of all, try not to boil everything down to one single indicator. Don't try to measure the performance of your overall innovation with just one indicator. Why? Because that particular indicator might be wrong, or even worse than that, people might game that indicator. People might find ways in which they can report it in an untruthful way, just for them to look good, for their careers, on their resume, and so on and so forth. So that will be one. Just don't try to measure everything with just one indicator. Second, I think you need to consider layers of indicators. And in the book, we talk about the ecosystem layer, the funnel layer, and the team layer. Try to have indicators at each layer of the system. Don't just try to look for indicators that are only speaking to executives, or indicators that are only talking about the funnel, or indicators that are only relevant for the teams. try to have a mixed bunch once you start doing that. Why? Because indicators have a tendency to influence each other. What I'm measuring at team level will influence my funnel, and what I'm measuring in my funnel is going to influence the overall performance of innovation. So just don't make that mistake and just saying, oh, we're only going to focus on funnel, or we're only going to focus on teams indicators. I think this will be like the two most critical ones.
Talking about also the innovation accounting, how can this approach help assess the effectiveness of R&D spending or early stage innovation investments?
Um, yeah, it's a good question. I mean, it's going to boil down to how every organization is designed, because in some organizations R&D expenditure is part of the cost of innovation. In some organizations is not. What I usually tend to say is that R&D is the process through which we convert money into ideas. Innovation is the process that converts those ideas back into money. We can't have one without the other. If we're just doing R&D, we're going to be sitting on a lot of patents that nobody's commercializing. And I've seen many organizations, and I don't want to name names here, but I've seen a lot of German organizations that are very much driven by how many patents have we launched every year. Well, I said, well, that's a good indicator for telling you if you're converting money into ideas and if your R&D process works, but that should not be your North Star indicator for performance, because otherwise what you're basically doing, you're incentivizing people to lock themselves in labs and try out new things without any direction for commercializing those ideas, without even asking themselves who the hell needs this, or why are we spending time building this. Much in the same way, you need innovation. Innovation takes those ideas out of the lab and puts it in the hands of people. And now you are talking about, business models and commercializing stuff and doing all the things that, for example, the Apples of the world are good at. I'm not saying that Apple doesn't do R&D, but if you take your iPhone, I suspect you have an iPhone, or people that are listening might have an iPhone. If you look at the components that are inside, very few of them are actually Apple components. The battery might come from one company, from one vendor. The screen might come from another one. The charging cable might come from another one, so on and so forth. Well, those people that invented those high resolution screens spend a lot of money on R&D because they've invented those screens. What Apple is doing is taking those ideas, if you want, and making them back into money by creating products like, the MacBook Air or the iPhone, or all of these products that we're so used to.
We outsource this innovation process, just dealt it with us in the long run.
I don't think it's a good idea. I mean, we know what happened with Asus and Dell, right? Like, basically, Dell created Asus because they were just driven by financial indicators. They, in essence, outsourced everything except for branding and sales channels. I think that even the sales channels at one point they've outsourced. But no, definitely innovation shouldn't be outsourced. And unfortunately, in the work that I'm doing, and I'm not trying to criticize either the corporations or the vendors themselves. What I'm seeing is that a lot of large organizations rely on venture builders to make innovation happen. That's nice and that's fine, but that's only going to work in a short term. That's only going to work for the next quarter, this year, or maybe 1 or 2 years down the line. But if you want to make innovation a repeatable process and a sustainable process, very important, sustainable here, sustainable in the sense of I'm actually making money out of the money I'm investing. Um, Innovation should be considered a critical function. This is why organizations need to build internal capability. Again, I have nothing against using venture builders. Every now and then is good because you can definitely speed things up with a venture builder. But overusing that and not training your own muscles on how to innovate, it's very, very detrimental in the long term. You will not feel the effects on your balance sheet or in your performance next quarter or at the end of the year, but definitely a couple of years down the line, you're going to see that in essence, you're not able to do anything because for all this time in the past, other people have done things for you, i.e. the venture builders build products for you. Again, I'm not criticizing. I don't work in venture building. I have a lot of friends that work in venture building, and this criticism goes for both sides of the equation.
What do you think about the innovation labs in the companies?
It's a really good question. To be honest with you, if you would hear some of my podcasts and see some of my conference recordings from 10 years ago, I was very much opposing the idea. I was like, oh, this is not good, this is not sustainable. And I'm not saying that I moved very far away from that, but I think I became a bit more pragmatic. I think that innovation labs are great as long as you have a plan on how to move away from an innovation lab. If you're building an innovation lab and say, okay, innovation lab is built, now in between now and the end of eternity, for as long as our company exists, we are only going to do innovation in the innovation lab, that's very detrimental and you should not do it. You should close the lab. You're not doing it right. However, if you say, listen, we haven't done innovation in our life ever before, and we're just starting now as a company, let's build this off-site thing where we do innovation. We call it innovation lab. Why? Because we want to see and we want to learn how innovation happens. We want to see if we can attract the right talent, if we have the right processes, if we can finance it properly, if we're good at our innovation strategy, all of those things. This is a very good way to start, but don't consider that as your only option. Like once you build it, you should have a plan on how to sunset it. It's very important. And again, I think a lot of organizations go into building those labs without a plan on sunsetting those. And then in the future, those labs literally become bottlenecks for innovation or become places where we send people that are very uncomfortable in the core business to have a side career, if you want, right? So they become these prisons for creative people because we're so busy in the core business doing other things. um, Again, I've always been critical of innovation labs. Now I warmed up to the idea because I know that it might be able to help organizations that are very early on in their innovation journey and they just want to start things out. Again, for the people that are listening, try to have a plan on how to move away from the innovation lab. Try to have a plan on how do you distribute innovation across your entire business. Do you want to do a decentralized function? Do you want to have a hybrid function? Whatever it is, but don't keep it central for a long time. Think about it like riding a bicycle, right? You put those training wheels on because you need them when you're 3 years old and you're trying to learn how to ride a bicycle. But you're not going to be able to run the Tour de France and win with training wheels on, right? Those training wheels need to come off. So what is your plan on those training wheels coming off? When are you going to do it? How you're going to do it? What are you going to transition to? Don't consider the innovation lab as being your final answer to the problem of innovation. And again, many organizations have made this mistake of just building a lab and then considering that to be their final thing, and they can move on to doing other things. And then that lab over time became a bottleneck.
At the team or project level, what metrics or KPIs are the most usable for measuring innovation progress?
It really depends here on the maturity of each project or each product or each team. But personally, when back in the day when I was coaching startup teams and I was coaching product teams, and I was actually a product owner at one point myself, I think that the very important question that teams need to answer is questions around velocity. How fast are we learning? Are we doing enough experiments? Are we learning enough in a unit of time? Or are we just dragging our feet, locking ourselves in, and just coding stuff? Hopefully, we're going to launch something in 3 years, 5 years, 4 months, whatever. So I think if you are going to look at the performance of an individual team or for an individual venture or project, try to look at their velocity. How fast are they moving? How fast are they moving, and how fast, very important, are they learning? Like doing validated learning, doing experiments, being in the market. I would say those are the most important thing. Obviously, To that, you can add indicators around confidence. How confident are you that they are moving in the right direction? And how has your confidence shifted or evolved based on the actions that the team has taken? Uh, let's say at the beginning, I'm not really confident you guys are heading in the right direction. But 3 weeks from now or 5 weeks from now, I'm seeing results from a certain experiment you have done or a certain feature you have released, and now this brings back the confidence in you, saying, "Oh, you guys are really on the right track." Again, I'm probably preaching to the converted here. You are a startup investor, so you know what I'm talking about, right? You have this mindset of like, look, guys, I'm not really confident that your venture is moving in the right direction, but if they come back with some data, some results from certain experiments, or some metrics proving that they are moving in the right direction, then your confidence increases. And whenever your confidence increases, they are more likely to raise more capital from you.
Additionally, on follow up to your comments, there are vanity metrics, for example, lots of startups are using. So, what
Yeah,
are some of examples of vanity metrics undermine the good innovation measurement?
there's a lot of those, right? And it's so easy to probably come up with vanity metrics, right? In the startup world, in the product world, you can look at number of users or number of followers on certain social media platforms. Those are top of mind. Revenue, it's a vanity metric at one point, because you don't know exactly if that revenue came from one client, from 10 clients, from 100. Did it come from clients that were sticking with your product for 6 months, or clients that just purchased it today and they have to leave tomorrow? Again, revenue is not telling you if you're profitable, not telling you anything about your cost structure. Even profitability sometimes can be masked as a vanity metric. I mean, there's so many examples out there of startups that people think, oh, they made it big and then they went bust. Think about WeWork. Think about the latest one. What's it called? 23andMe. They had an IPO, and now they are penny stock, right? So again, even revenues is and profitability can be vanity metrics. If you're looking at internal innovation in corporations, number of ideas that we have in the pipeline, it's a vanity metric. Number of ideas that are being implemented can be a vanity metric at one point. I think what's important here is going back a couple of minutes ago, when we said what are the principles of innovation accounting system. Well, don't try to measure everything with one metric, because that metric probably has a good tendency of becoming a vanity metric. If we manage every organization by pure profitability, we're probably not getting the full picture. Where did the profitability come from? Did it come from them selling the buildings, like the headquarters that they have, in order to be profitable? Did that profitability come from just core products, or did it also come from adjacencies or transformational products? Again, profit revenue is not telling you the entire story. That was try to tie back to the conversation that we had earlier about Asus and Dell. In Dell, they were basically just managing with RONA, return on net assets. That was it. That was their do or die indicator. And obviously, the RONA was moving in the right direction, but was not telling you the entire picture. Like, look, we totally outsourced production to a foreign country, and now we can't do anything but branding. So again, they were successful at failing, if you want.
How can abstraction be used to provide innovation insights to different layers of the organizations?
Yeah, abstraction is one of those things that I mentioned earlier, right? It's important to have indicators on various layers of the organization. What abstraction does is that you are taking indicators from one layer and the values of those indicators at one layer, and then abstracting that to the next level and the next level after that. Why is it important? Because a CFO or a CEO will never necessarily care about how fast is an idea moving, right? What we just talked about earlier, velocity. They probably don't care that much about it. But I think that through abstraction, they will look at other indicators that are, in essence, influenced by how fast ideas are moving. Take this example for this particular conversation. If an idea is learning a lot, right? If the product team is learning a lot, you are going to increase your confidence in them as a manager. So that confidence is going to manifest itself through the money that they get, but also through how fast they are moving through your life cycle. So they are moving very fast from stage 1, 2, 3, 4, and so on and so forth. Well, the faster they are moving, the shorter the time to market it is. So time to market, it's an indicator that definitely a CFO might be interested in, or a CEO might be interested in, but it's influenced by the learning velocity of individual teams. So the CFO will not be necessarily interested. Look, tell me the learning velocity of all my teams, as much as he would be interested in the time to market.
True. And taking the blame out of the system, how does it impact the culture around the innovation then?
It's always impactful, right? Because the moment when you start not blaming people and blaming the process or blaming the system, then people are very much keen on getting better and improving themselves, but also improving the environment and the process they are working with. If I come and say, look, Barack, I think you've done a bad job, you're going to take that personal at one point. No matter how I frame it, you're going to take it personal. But if I come in and say, look, that project failed, let's look at why did it fail without placing blame on you, and then we identify, look, I don't know, we haven't had the right investment framework, or it was not really clear when I need to do a prototype or how much I'm allowed to spend on a prototype. Then that particular thing, it's taking blame away from you, moving it into something that we can influence. We can both contribute to improving the system and the process.
You work with lots of companies. What is the funniest or most bizarre objection to innovation accounting you have heard?
Oh, objection to innovation accounting. Yeah, you always hear stuff around this doesn't work from organizations that haven't even tried it. So I think this is the most common one. Like, oh, this doesn't work. We can't measure innovation. Or funnier than that, people say we shouldn't even try to measure innovation because innovation is about culture, is about you know people coming up with loads of ideas and all of that stuff. Like people moving away from pragmatism. I think those are the most common ones, I would say.
What book or books have you had the biggest impact on your thinking around innovation and the process?
Oh man, there's so many of them. There's like literally tens, if not hundreds, of books that influenced my work with the corporate startup, but also with innovation accounting. I wouldn't even know where to start, to be honest. I mean, probably the first books would be Christiansen, The Innovation Dilemma, and The Innovators Solution, all of those books, and again, a lot of great books from Rita McGrath, Discovery Driven Growth, for example. Uh, the Lean Startup. Obviously, we need to mention that one. There's yeah, as I said, tens of or hundreds of books. So I'm trying to stay away from naming books. Already, I named 3 or 4 because I'm probably not doing justice to the other people that I'm probably forgetting now that made amazing contributions that I've used, I've cited in the books, I've referenced stuff to them. So yeah, I mean, take any of my 2 books and skip everything, go to the last page, and you see the list of references there, and that's basically it.
Beside your podcast, what podcasts or blogs do you follow to stay on the top of the latest innovation insights, especially innovation?
To be honest with you, I don't think I'm necessarily subscribed to one single podcast or one single channel. I'm more likely to click on something and listen to something that catches my eye in terms of either the speaker or the topic. So I can't say, look, I'm only following podcast A or podcast B. I think it's more about the topic and the speaker. Yeah, HBR has a great podcast, but not all of their episodes are good. Some of them are
Okay.
really bad. So again, there's variations from episode to episode in every single podcast, and this one episode, for your podcast is going to be the same. It's going to be different than the other episodes, for better or worse. We don't know that. Like, the listeners are going to tell us how much they liked it. But I'm usually just trying to follow certain people that I respect, that I like, hearing what they have to say. But also, if there's a really interesting topic about, an organization has done things differently or whatever it was, I like to follow that as well.
Which conferences are there in this vertical, in this sector, that you regularly attend, join?
There's many. Sorry, there's many conferences that are interesting for corporate innovators. The one that I'm usually going speaking at is Innovators. It's a franchise that has grown a lot in the past 10 years, and I think I owe part of my success to that conference in particular, because I've met a lot of great people there, a lot of people that I've interviewed for our books, a lot of people that offered to help with research. So in parts, I think I owe a lot to Hans and the entire team, actually, at the Innovators, not just Hans. Um, that's one. Um, yeah, I think there's a lot of them. Also in Southeast Asia, there's Tech Sauce, there is Slush, which is again a really great conference. More startup-y, but again, you're gonna have people there from CVC. You're gonna have people from corporate joining there as well.
If you go back 10 years and
Huh.
give your younger self advice, when you first started consulting with large companies, what would it be?
Oh, that's a good one. I'm answering from the top of my head, so maybe if you're gonna ask me the same question tomorrow, I'll probably have reflected more. Uh, I would say that by far the most important, the most advice would be, try to understand the other party. Try to understand why people are thinking or doing or saying the things that they are doing, rather than coming in and saying, look, you are the holder of the eternal truth. Others don't know anything. They need to listen to you. Going back to accelerators. 10 years ago, I was criticizing and pointing my finger to a lot of companies doing accelerators. Uh, I've warmed up to the idea over the past couple of years, or more, because I realize now what is their motivator for going down that path, for doing that kind of taking that kind of approach. So I think it's very important to understand what's the driving force that motivates people to take the actions that they're taking. Yeah,
You have been traveling a lot. Where is your favorite travel destination that you go back?
it's a hard one. I think every single place I've been to was great in its own way, but it's very difficult to say now. Look, Southeast Asia is better than Turkey, or Turkey is better than Lisbon, or Portugal is worse than Canada. It's very difficult to say that. Every single place I've been to, I would like to come back to. Let's put it this way. I think that's the better answer, to be honest with you. And actually, it's not just the better answer. It's just the honest answer.
So, are there any fun facts that nobody knows about yourself?
Oh, I don't know how you define fan. So it's like we need the definition of that. I don't know how you describe it, or what you are looking for in the question. I can definitely tell you more, but you have to be more specific.
Funny facts means such as you can be a part of a band, or you are the windsurfer or a wave surfer that nobody knows, but you have a hobby,
Right.
any talent, skills that nobody knows, or even not a skill but something else nobody knows, and you are, for example, you like Legos and your home is full of Legos with the,
I
for example,
wish.
this
I
kind
wish.
of
I like them so much, but I have a small apartment and I can't fit all the Legos I want. I only have two, and every single time I pass by a Lego store, I'm like, oh, I don't want to go in because I'm probably gonna leave with something. So, yeah, Legos are definitely something I'm into. So if you ever want to bribe me, just go in and buy a Lego set. No matter how big, I'm still gonna love it. Yeah, I mean, to answer your question, I think sports, it's very important for me, and it's been part of my culture, and it's been part of my life, to be honest with you. So I've done a lot of sports and still doing a lot. So I'm really enjoying the outdoors. If I'll have the opportunity, I'll much rather be outside doing things in the outdoors than being inside. We can discuss serious stuff, but we can also discuss it while walking or while hiking. I much rather do that.
and this has been such an insightful and fascinating conversation. Thank you very much. Thank you for taking the time to share and also the experience with me today.
My pleasure. Thank you very much for having me.